Hi everyone, Noah here, and today, as of this being uploaded, it should be November 14, 2024. Um, Now I'm gonna get to the point of why I titled this video November 14, 2019, which is 5 years ago now. Holy shit. I'm gonna get into why. I'm just gonna explicitly state why I called it this. November 14, 2019 was the date in which my grandmother passed away from cancer. Yeah, that's the trauma lore drop for you guys. Yeah, I mean, the OGs, I'll say this, the OGs who've stuck around with my channel since 2017 or 2018 or even early 2019, I mean, you guys were actually there for when this happened. And I made like community post announcements about the cancer process, not divulging any like super personal information, obviously, but like I just said, "Oh, my grandmother, she has cancer. We're trying to sort that out. Maybe there's going to be like a downtick in content because I'm spending a lot of time trying to work through this and be there with my family. And then of course, when it happened, I left a post saying, it's over. And it's been 5 years since then. Five. That's absurd to think about. It's so hard to wrap that. I'm sorry. I made a pledge to myself that I wouldn't edit this or do any retakes. That I just have this be my raw feelings. But there's a lot of feelings in this head, and I fuck up my F and th sounds all the time if I'm not doing re-recordings, and then I still do it. So whatever, right? Um, guess what I'm trying to say is it's the passage of time is quite absurd, and it fucks with you. Because I'll be honest, there's times when I feel like not that long has passed at all. And then there's times when I feel like a whole lifetime has passed. I've, I mean, a lot of stuff has changed. A lot of stuff has changed, and a lot of stuff has stayed the same over the past 5 years. I'm more aware of the world, um, for better or for worse. Um, but I'm still trapped in a lot of the same tendencies I disliked back then and dislike now. Looking back at them, I still dislike some of the things I do. But I'm trying to work on that now. It's really bizarre. I think that this November 14, 2019 date kind of led to a major shift in my life in a sense. I mean, 2019 was the last year where I truly felt like everything was normal. Um, I guess that's the best way to put it. Like, the last time I truly felt like life was just plain old good, and I never had to worry about a damn thing because everything was secure. And I guess losing someone so close to me, it kind of shattered that illusion, didn't it? Um, and then after that, of course, there was quarantine in 2020, and I was like, well, this will pass eventually, right? So like, normal life will resume, and I mean, it has now, but I don't really think it feels the same anymore, um, because I mean, I joined Twitter around that time. I started getting information on things that I never really, I mean, heard a lot before. Um, I started shifting my YouTube content viewership. I started like actually like watching like properly watching people who had like stuff to say, like not just like gameplay. I mean, obviously sometimes gameplay videos can be pretty awesome. I guess I did start watching Technoblade around that 2020, so it wasn't like totally like gone from my YouTube diet per se, but I will say that the old days of me just like watching popular MMOs to get my daily fix were over, because popular MMOs was also kind of like uh, oh god, I mean that was a whole thing in and of itself. Like his divorce with Jen and all that following stuff was around this time. I'm not gonna get into that. It was just I don't know. Like I just bowed out of that guy's content at some point, and even though he was my favorite YouTuber at one point. Like that's an interesting fact about my lore. But regardless, yeah, I feel like I'm getting kind of off track. I feel like things have just gone so whack since 2019, and here's the thing about that. I've been watching a lot of YouTube shorts recently. God bless my poor soul, but I've been doing that. And there's a lot of shorts where like you have like old music of like the time, and you have like a meme about like nostalgia or something, and you got people in the comments saying stuff like, man, 2019, that was our last good year, right? Like you got memes like, you wake up, it's 2019, all of that was fake. And I mean, you got people in the comments saying stuff like, damn, our last good year, I think everything's been so fucked since. And I get that feeling all the time. It feels like 2020 to 2024 has just been like a giant blend of like horrible shit. And if it's not horrible shit, it's just, I guess, like mindless, mindless, numbing blobs, you know? Like, what's not horrible is just extremely boring and monotonous. But the truth is, I think that's just growing up. I think 14 is just when I started to get aware of the world around me more than I'd ever been before. And I guess having something so traumatic happen to me, like my grandmother passing away, right on that precipice, it kind of launched me into the unknown a bit, and I stopped being sheltered. Um, and like, wow, I mean, now here I am. I'm aware that there's currently genocides going on around the world. There's basically like fucking near open fascism going on in the U.S. It might be too generous to call it near at this point. Um, I mean, it's been such a struggle, honestly, to like wrap my head around this, even from like a place of privilege. I think it's hard to. Like, damn, this is the world we live in. And I got to make my place in this. Um, at least until something can be done so that it's not like this anymore. And I mean, what I can do to help, I'd love to do that. But it takes so much logistics, and I mean, you got to figure out yourself before you can figure out anything else, I guess. Like, you got to take care of yourself so that you can take care of the collective. Um, and that's like a big thing I've been thinking about lately. And I know this is all over the place. It's just, I'm just trying to, I guess, come to terms with the fact that my perception of the world itself hasn't changed much, I don't think. Because horrible shit was still happening in 2019, in 2018, in 2017, in 2016, all the other years. Like, it didn't start out of nowhere. Like, you got COVID and stuff like that, but like, that didn't start out of nowhere. We had other similar situations before. Um, we had like tons of fucked up, terrible shit happening all the time. I mean, I heard about the war in Syria, for example. Like that was something I learned about in school. I mean, that was that was also horrible shit. And I mean, like fundamentally, the world is not much different than it was 5 years ago, but it feels so different, and it's because my perception of the world has changed. I've actually had to wake up to the things going on around me, and it's not. It's. I mean, there's a little bit of pathos in this statement, but like, it's so hard to be thrust into that by something so traumatic too, because it keeps going back to the fact that my grand died 5 years ago, and that was like the catalyst for everything. And I I don't know what thesis I'm supposed to grab from any of this. This is really just me spouting shit into a camera, honestly, because I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to make sense of it. I don't know if anyone can make sense of it, because that's just it. That's just it. Cancer is a motherfucker. Okay, it's a big motherfucker. I'm coming out with hot takes. Don't like cancer very much. Fucking cancel me, right? I'll get 5 Netflix specials. Try it. Anyway, uh, I don't really know what to say. It's like this is less of me trying to make a point and less and more of just me trying to cope because it still feels so real and so hard, like to accept that I lost this person who I cared about so much because I was so close with my gran. I don't, I can't say it in words. Like, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It fucking hurts. I just don't have the words to express how it hurts. And then everything that's come after, losing more people to cancer. I mean, I have never, thankfully, lost a person to cancer since then that I know personally. Technoblade passed away from cancer in 2022, even though he was almost like an anchor while this world was collapsing around me. And that might have been like the final nail in the coffin because I mean now I am confronting the world that I live in at every possible moment. I'm not always confronting it well. A lot of the time I end up turning back and retreating into myself, but I can't pretend I don't know what's happening anymore. I can't force myself not to realize. I can't be in my little bubble anymore. And I mean, again, there is pathos in that statement. It's kind of pathetic, but it's difficult. It's difficult. And I'm aware so many other people have this worse. I mean, there are so many people, like, of the stuff I've mentioned in this video, like, you think of, like, people suffering around the world, like, in Palestine, in Sudan, in the Congo, in Myanmar, all these places. Like, you think about that and think, how could you possibly be feeling so distressed? But then I realize, I mean, no one should be feeling how I am feeling. No one. The fact that there are people who are feeling worse than that, I mean, it it really fucks with me. Like, I think every human is entitled to a society where these sorts of like traumatic events that just fuck up your perception of the world so much that you can barely get yourself back on track, and it requires like years long process of really trying to work through it. I mean, that shouldn't happen to anyone. And then you have people who are suffering even worse than that, drastically worse than that. It's mind boggling to me, and I just don't think it's acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable, and we have to be talking about that. I don't know what to do about this. I mean, I know what to do in like terms of like helping people. Like I've I've listened to discussions of like mutual aid and like organizing and stuff like that. That stuff I know. I'm gonna try and get involved in that the best I can going forward. But in terms of changing my perception, reorienting my like mind around this stuff, I think it's always gonna fuck with me. I think this like whole catalyst event of my grand dying is gonna hang over me for the rest of my life. Um, and you know what? Um, maybe that will happen, and maybe there's nothing I can do about it, and maybe I can work with that. I don't know. Like at the end of the day, being aware of the world around me, is it the worst thing? Yes, it can be very distressing. Yes, it can be very hard to adjust to. A lot of that is also autism, right? Like, a lot of that is also the fact that we live in a society where I am not necessarily built to thrive, for the most part. Like, the institutions that I'm going through to try and get a place in society to, like, live comfortably are not built with me in mind. They're built with holistic people in mind, with neurotypical people in mind. Um, and that goes for, like, all sorts of neurodivergent people. I mean, there are people with more support needs who are autistic than I have. So, like, I'm not even like the extreme example of this, but I mean, I'm sure that's a factor, and it sucks. It sucks. It fucking sucks. But at the end of the day, like as difficult as this is to go through, like of course if I went back in time and stopped and could stop my gran from dying, obviously I'd do that, but I still think even if I had prevented that somehow, that this is just growing older. This is just growing older. It's like I said about those YouTube commenters insisting that 2019 was the last good year. It wasn't. Okay? Tons of terrible shit was happening all around the world in every year. We've been catapulting towards like a climate catastrophe for like decades and decades. And hopefully that's somehow stopped at this point, and like it's not likely that we're gonna miss the worst effects of it. And I mean, it's gonna require a lot of mutual aid and assistance from person to person. But getting back on track, like at the end of the day, like horrible shit was always gonna happen, always happening. We just didn't wake up to it until a certain point in our lives. You remember 2019 as being the last good year because it's the last year you didn't have to think about this. The last year before you were thrust out into the world and you were actually confronted with the stuff happening around you. Because that's what it is for me. My parents talk about being super nostalgic for like the 80s, right? Because that's when they were growing up. I'm nostalgic for the 2010s. Not because they were better per se. I mean, in some ways they were for sure. I mean, we didn't have like a lot of like super annoying technology. Um, like we do now in the 2020s with like NFTs and the AI slop and whatever. But like in most ways, it wasn't much better. We just remembered it being better because, I mean, fuck, we were young. We were young. We're always gonna look back on when things were better when we were young. Every fucking generation ever has done that, and I'm not even placing myself on a pedestal because like that's the main thesis I'm kind of making out of this. That at the end of the day, like the world didn't get worse. We just saw how bad it was, and now we now have to figure out what to do about that. And and we still have to find a way to get up in the morning every day and confront that fact. And and that's just it, right? I don't think anything could have changed this. I mean, I see it as like my grand's death being like the catalyst into me waking up and seeing the world for what it was. But would would it have stopped that from happening if she was still alive today? I hope she was still alive today, but would that have stopped anything from happening? I don't know. I don't know. But I do know this. My grandma my grandmother was 67 years old at time of passing. 67. It sounds young when you consider how like long the life expectancy is. But 67, that's a long time from where I'm looking. I'm 19. I'm going to be 20 next year, but very soon from now, but like whatever. Um that's like well over 3 times my age. And that's like from now. Obviously, I was 14 when she died. So, like I'm not going to do the math on that. I don't really I dropped out of math in high school, but um the point is it's such a long time to be alive. It's such a long time to know everything that's happened, to really be confronted with the world as it is, and like learn to work your way through it, and really come out on top. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to get into the personal details, but my grandmother had plenty of her own struggles during her life. Plenty of traumatic shit happened to her. I don't even know the full of it. I would have to ask my family about it. I do not. I mean, of what I do know, I'm not going to tell you because it's like really personal for the family. But I'll just tell you the fact that it is a fact that my grandmother had plenty of traumatic shit to overcome, and my grandmother was one of the sweetest, kindest people in the entire world. I mean, there was no one like her. I I don't think her love is like a type of love that, I mean, I don't even know what the fuck love is, to be honest with you, but that love that came from her is like no other. And she was just such a bright, like, incredible person to be around. And I guess I want to loop back this video to talking about that more than anything because I just want to pay respects to my gran. And The fact that she was so old, that she'd lived so long and through so much, and she could still, and she could still work through it. And I mean, I'm sure she had terrible fucking days. I know she had terrible fucking days. I was there for the terrible days because I saw her in her darkest moments when she was suffering, when she was in the hospital, when she was home sick. And and I saw the entire I mean, I didn't see the entire process, but I'm being a bit like metaphorical here, metaphorical here, but the point is I know that she struggled. I know that she struggled. She struggled just like I struggled. I mean, with vastly different things, but and she was still such an incredible person, and she could get up every day, and she could go to bed every night, and she could make it, and she had a 100% success rate of doing that, a 100% success rate, and so do I. I've never failed at getting up in the morning and going to bed at night. Never. I mean, unless you want to count my late nights when I stay up into the morning, but let's not get technical about it. I've made it this far. I've made it 19 years. 19 years. That's fucking wild. Okay? It, I know I said it wasn't long compared to 67, but it's a long time. I've made it that long. I've made it 7 years on YouTube. 7 years. How have I not thrown in the towel yet? How have I not thrown in the towel after seeing almost no success? I don't know, but I know I'm going to keep doing it. I know I'm going to keep doing it. No matter how much I change up my strategy or no matter how much I change my mindset because it's just me. If the world around me is going to get fucked up and I'm going to have to look at it like a fucked up world, if I'm going to have to confront every goddamn problem it's in it, and I should, and I should confront the problems I can confront to better people and other people's lives, but I can do that. I can manage it. I know I'm I know I can do it. I can I can wake up again and again and again, and I can continue. I can find the joys of my life. I can write. I can I can do all these incredible things. I have amazing friends. Not so much in real life, but I'm working on that. I have plenty of amazing friends online. Um, I have a very loving family, and I I believe in myself. I believe I can do this, and I believe so many of you. I believe in so many of you as well. I I mean an impossible number of you. I don't know much about you, but trust me. Trust me on this. I do believe. I believe. I believe in you. I believe in you to be your best self despite everything. Despite how fucked it is to have to grow up in a world of so many problems. To like suffer through the shit that no one should ever suffer through. It's so easy to feel like you're at rock bottom. I understand. Like, even with such comparative privilege, I've felt that way before. I've had moments where I feel like my life is spiraling out of control and there's goddamn not a thing I can do about it. But my gran had such an incredible philosophy that, I mean, I couldn't ever hope to describe it in a YouTube video, but at the end of the day, like, nothing can stop us from being the best versions of ourselves, from doing the things we love. I mean, yeah, material things can stop you, but I don't think anything stops the desire and the drive to do things we love. And I mean, if we can't get that materially, we fight for it. We fight for it. My gran fought for a lot of things. I mean, she went down in battle. You have to remember that. If she was Norse, she'd be in fucking Valhalla right now. And I mean, she was a Scot, so like, we probably have a similar concept that I haven't looked into too much. And fuck, it's all over the place. I'm just saying. I mean, we can do this, okay? I can do this. I've made it 5 years in this new world that I'm so unfamiliar with. I mean, it hasn't been easy. It's felt like a blur. It's felt so shitty sometimes, but I've 5 years. 5 years is a long time to last in a world that feels so unforgiving. But I see kindness in it, in the people around me, and I think that my Gran is still with me. I really do. So, Gran, if you're watching this, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you. And to the rest of you, thank you for sticking with me too. I don't have much else to say. I've aired out all my feelings, and if you want to air out some of your feelings in the comments section, go the fuck ahead. As long as it's not like something like fucking like vile or something. Um, you know, that's just how it is, right? We're all struggling to cope through this world that we're in that's so fucked as we're getting older. But, I believe in you, and I mean, I don't want to encourage like a parasocial relationship of any kind, but in spirit, I'm here for you. And whatever content I make is, in theory, here for you. I mean, I'm planning to do a ton more streams in the future. I've kind of been lackluster on a lot of stuff like the AUL read alouds. Haven't done a Hunger Games in forever, unless you count the one with Arius about JJK characters. But I mean, I'm hoping that I can get things back on track. And I mean, especially with the way the world's headed right now, I just want to provide a space where people can, I guess, where people can find some joy. And because, my Gran was that for me, and a lot of other people were too. Technoblade, and fuck, who God knows who else. Just so many people. Like my friends, my family. Yeah, I hope I can be the kind of person for you who, makes things just a little easier. And I mean, hopefully this video did too. So, goodbye and best wishes.